The drama with Stellar Blade Censorship has a lot of people talking, and there are some very bad consequences to that. Let me be blunt. There are a lot of people trying to lie to you, to convince you of certain things that are just not true. This is a big and complicated issue. There are parts of this that are very important, and there are parts of this that are very dumb. It is also a very unfortunate thing that this is happening to this game in particular, because it's a game that really ignores a lot of the worst trends, a lot of the worst anti-consumer trends, and brings back a lot of really cool stuff that we've wanted for a long time from our AAA releases. It's a game that if it weren't surrounded by this current controversy, we should all be championing, but it's in this controversy. So what I want to do here today is lay out the facts of what is happening, and then after that I'm going to tackle a lot of the misinformation that people are putting out, the way that people on no matter what side, if you want to really paint sides, for me we should all be on the side of please make games good, but how all of them are trying to feed you information that is not true as if it were true in order to get you riled up. And then at the very end of it, I want to give my opinion. So the objective here is for you to be properly informed, and hopefully by breaking it down this way, you can come to your own conclusions about what is happening and understand both why some people think it's dumb and why some people think it's very important, because there is truth to both of those depending on where you're looking from and what your objective is. So hi, I'm Mug Thief, welcome to the channel. Let's get into it. So here are the facts. Fact number 1. Stellar Blade is a video game that had a large amount of its marketing focused on the female characters in the game and how they look and how you could customize outfits and how they would look throughout the game. And they are very traditionally attractive women that are wearing very revealing outfits if you choose to do so. It doesn't really matter the reasons why they did this or what they chose. For me, it's just their creative intention, whether it is to sell more copies or because they just like this aesthetic or they like creating characters like this. That's a fact, and it's also a fact that it was marketed towards people with that. To the point that the CEO, Hyung-tae Kim of the developer Shift Up, came out and said that there would be no censorship in the game anywhere. No country would have any censorship of it. The second fact is that the version of the game, the 1.0 version that is on the disc if you don't patch it, contains a series of outfits that, after you patch it, are less revealing, which I think logically can be considered censorship. Not only censorship, but there is a premise of false advertisement from the CEO. He is trying to establish trust with his consumers. He's affirming that the game will not be censored, and then there is what seems to be very clear evidence of censorship on the disc compared to the patch, the day 1 patch. Fact number 3, because of that breach of trust, because you received a game that doesn't contain what it was said to have, people have been asking for refunds of it using false advertisement as the reason for the refund, and they have been getting it. We do not, however, know all of the details. We don't know how many people have done this. We don't know if they've done it after 30 minutes playing or after an hour or after 20. We're not sure about those details, but there are people that have done it, and we can confirm that if you request a refund, you have a high likelihood of receiving it if you select false advertisement as the reason. Number 4, there are people saying that refunding the game hurts Shift Up, the developer, and saying that in reality, the censorship that is in the game comes from Sony, and therefore what you should do is cancel your PSN subscription. Many people have chosen to cancel their subscription. How many? We don't know. And we will never know. Much like in the case of asking for refunds, that data will never be out there. We won't actually hear from Sony how many people refunded it. They themselves could never really calculate how many people have done it because of this. And if you went out there, I don't know, on the internet in general and started a poll, can you really trust every single person that answers the poll? And before we get to fact number 5, if you're wondering why are people so angry about this, it is because it is a breach of trust, and it is false advertisement. It's getting people to buy the game or marketing towards them with a premise, and then it doesn't contain that in the game, or it has been modified. It feels like it's been compromised, people feel like they've been lied to, and there is a much bigger question here around censorship and all of the potential reasons why these changes happen, and some of those potential reasons have very serious implications and conversations that I do consider very important for video games. So please understand that people are in their right to be angry, and even if some of them are not doing it because of the larger principle of what's going on here, and they're just being petty or, I don't know, being dumb or even looking like idiots on Twitter, people have the right to do so. And here's fact number 5, because I think it's important to mention it, and one of the reasons I'm making this video is because I want to review this game and I want to say a lot of positive things about it. But if I never talk about the controversy that's happening and everything around it, people are never going to let me live. I can't say something positive if I haven't acknowledged the situation at some point, so here we are. Stellar Blade is a full-price AAA game that has a very full campaign. It is content-rich, it is beautiful, it has no microtransactions, it is just jam-packed with absolutely fantastic combat sequences, environments to explore, and a series of decisions that I love, including the fact that there are so many different unlockable outfits for the character. Like this were 2002 and we're playing, you know, good old PS2 games that had a long list of unlockable outfits or something. There is nothing in this game that comes from a developer that is successful previously for free-to-play mobile games that is predatory or greedy or trying to take your money or force you to get into a season pass or pay microtransactions, or that allows you to skip the game or pay for convenience. There's nothing. There's just a really good game. You pay the price, you get a good game. That's a fact. I mean, maybe you don't like the game, but I mean, the other stuff is true. So now let's shift gears into the conversation about that misinformation, about people who are outright lying about things and creating narratives. That this is the interesting part. If they were true, they each represent some really bad things and conversations that need to be had. But they are not presenting them as possibilities. They are presenting them as facts from everywhere. As much as traditional gaming journalism is representing the people mad about this as people who are angry because video game cover boobies, and apparently they've never left their basement in the last 12 years, and this is as close as they can get to being close to a woman. There are also people on the other side saying Sony has completely butchered this game, they have ruined it, and everything about the industry is wrong, and the game is now garbage, and Shift Up needs to be cancelled just as much as Sony for the censorship. And yes, like, really? The main concern is, where does this censorship come from? We've already talked about how it is censorship. I think that even if you try and debate the term, I think it's clear that if there were outfits that were more revealing before, and they are less revealing now, you could consider that censorship. But where does it come from? Does it come from Shift Up, the developers? Does it come from Sony, who is publishing this game and financing a part of it? What is the reasoning behind that censorship? And what makes it even more complicated is the fact that the outfits that were censored, I mean, this is subjective, but I don't think they're even the most revealing. I think that there are plenty of outfits still in the game that are more revealing than the ones they censored before they were censored, which begs the question, why did they censor only some of them? Very confusing. So there's people affirming, claiming 100% certainty, as if it's true, that this is Sony doing it for God knows what reason, to tone down the content in the game, to avoid certain representation of the Sony brand within it, going against Shift Up's wishes, and people are mad. However, there is no evidence of this. We do not know. Normally we would have a leaker, we would have journalists investigating, there would have been a comment made by someone, but there is nothing to indicate that it was Sony's doing, except our own speculation. And even if we can reach certain conclusions, we can never know for sure. If it were something from Sony, there are important problems to discuss here, which is the double standard. Why would you censor outfits in Stellar Blade, but not censor, for example, The Last of Us 2, having explicit scenes with Abby and her ex-boyfriend whose name escapes me? Why would you censor this and not Baldur's Gate 3, which has full frontal nudity of all types and plenty of explicit acts in it if you want to go looking for them? Why censor one thing and not the other? Because it kind of feels like they're saying, this is the bad kind. We don't like this. And that's not fair to the consumer or to the developer or to anybody. Why do they get to be the arbiters of what is appropriately explicit and what isn't? Because I think we can all agree that skimpy outfits in a video game really isn't a very controversial topic. It's not really going up to the line and attempting to cross it even, as many other games that have been allowed more explicit nudity have. Just the fact of them, hypothetically, no confirmations on anything, forcing censorship on a game is bad. And having that relationship and having them take those sorts of steps erodes some of the trust in what Sony can do. And it makes a lot of people, me included, feel like I can't trust them, and I couldn't trust them before. But it's not about Stellar Blade. It's about what else will they decide to do and try and hide that compromises the artistic vision. And as a huge nerd that loves video games and wants them to be the best they can be, to me it's really important that the artist's vision is preserved and shown to us. There is no reason for you to censor these games. If they contain things that are acceptable, like I said, there's stuff that is definitely not meant to be in a consumer product, right? There are things that can be talked about, can be discussed and represented tastefully, and then there's just stuff that's outright wrong. This is not one of those cases of being outright wrong. Why censor it? You make me not trust you in what else you might be changing about an artist's vision about the game that they wanted to make, and how you are curating or changing things either for your image or for a select group of the public, when we are the ones that should be deciding, hey, we like this or we don't, but let the artist put their vision out there. The other option is that it was Shift Up, which succumbed to some pressure, or they were afraid that it would have a negative impact on them of some sort. That, to me, really doesn't ring true, and the same to a lot of people, considering these are the people who make Nikke, which, yes, is a game that I've played, and yes, I played it for the story. I'm not even being sarcastic. Once again, I'm here for the principle of the thing. I play this game because it's fun to play, not because how the character looks. The fact is, it feels kind of strange that they would censor this game when they try their hardest to not censor Nikke, although they have encountered some issues with censorship with Nikke, since it does technically belong to Tencent and Level Infinite now. But to me, that doesn't mean that it's automatically Sony. I think that there is an actual case, and this again, another hypothesis not based in fact, that there is creative intent behind it, that their final goal with the outfits that were changed was to make them look the way they do, and they just didn't have them finished in the 1.0 version that's on the disc. And the version that you get after the patches is what they always wanted it to look like. And yes, the fact that there are plenty of other more revealing outfits in the game does kind of sustain that idea as well. This is what I mean with it's complicated to just start trains of either hatred or support or whatever based on pure speculation. Because the CEO did come out and say that there was an internal debate about those outfits and about the patch at the studio, but that didn't clarify why they were changed. And because he did that, there will be no censorship, which you could understand as this was always the final intention, and this is the uncensored version of what they want. Even though it's censored compared to the version they didn't want, you can also understand it as them lying and you obtaining false advertisement because there are versions of the games that are different. It's complicated. For all we know, it might even be the model of Eve, because Eve is body scanned from a real person. Their likeness is used for Eve. She has a contract and probably has some things that she can complain about in representation. They said probably she doesn't like the outfits. And maybe that could be the reason they changed it. The fact is, we don't know. Oh, and before somebody says, what do you mean she would complain about that? She has plenty of Instagram pictures that are way more revealing than anything in the game. And that's her personal Instagram. When was the last time somebody did something for rational reasons, my guy? Like, she could do it just because she doesn't like how the outfit looks or whatever. Anything goes when we have no proof of anything, and when the little things we know can be misinterpreted, are very sparse, have language barriers, all sorts of things. And by the way, and in the intro I said that a lot of this controversy is dumb. And that's because there are people telling you that this game shouldn't be played and that it's bad because of these changes, when you can really easily point to other outfits that are way more revealing. And while that doesn't take away the fact of the ones that were changed, it is important to point out that the game is not bad and that it is a great game that you should play, and that it makes it feel kind of dumb when the reaction is this aggressive, and especially when, you know, this is an unorganized group of people. This is anybody throwing out their opinion. There are plenty of examples. There's plenty of ammunition out there of people speaking like absolute mongoloids about they took away the boobs, and that looks really dumb. When instead, if you talk about this from the perspective of the grander principle, the idea of censorship and of consumer trust, there's a conversation to be had within the realm of logic where we can also say none of that impacts the real quality of the game. It doesn't transform anything in the game significantly beyond those outfits that were changed. The game is still great and you can still play it, and that's it. But people are out there, as with anything, telling you that it was Sony and you have to boycott them, or that it was Shift Up pulling a bait and switch, trying to trick you into purchasing the game. There's people saying that they purposefully left into the 1.0 version a graffiti that says hard right next to a store that's called the R Shop. You can see where this is going if you haven't seen it, and that they did that on purpose to have an excuse to patch the game so that they could censor the outfits. And they are telling you this as a fact. They are trying to get you riled up and angry about something, but a lot of the time, they're not even telling you why it matters. You should make up your own mind on how much this matters, and in my opinion, you should hope for journalists, for real people to go out there and do the research necessary to find out what went on with this, because it might be nothing. It might just be that this was the creative vision. It might just be a mistake. It might just be that even though this was the creative vision, they have seen the backlash and they will patch in the old versions of the outfits and leave both versions in. Who knows what could happen? But the extreme takes with lies really bothers me. Over 20,000 people cancel PSN subscription because of Stellar Blade censorship. No, they didn't. You don't know that. Stop pretending you do. What are you talking about, man? Come on. I mean, it's the internet. Everybody's got to get their little piece in and try and create something that allows people to click on it. I probably did it for you to click on this video, but I promise you that I did it with the best of intentions. I did it for you to come to your own conclusions about this. But let me repeat myself so that I make it very clear. There are some options of what actually went down here that lead to some really important conversations that we need to have, lessons that need to be learned by the industry, but we don't have the answers yet. And the part that pisses me off about that is not just lying to people, but it's also the very real damage that can be done to the parties involved for no reason. Well, somebody's guilty, so if we attack them on all fronts, it'll eventually work. Or, you know, or not. Let's be honest, or not. And that is why this is dumb and also very important at the same time, and why people have seen it as both things. And I think that there is a way, there is a perspective to look at it from where both of those opinions are equally valid. My choice, my opinion on this is that those potential outcomes that we cannot confirm yet do have conversations behind them that we need to have someday. There are things that we should worry about. I do not want the artist's vision of a game to be censored. I don't think that video games need to be censored. Any sort of artistic expression really shouldn't be censored except for those extreme cases. And beyond that, I think it's a damn shame what's going on without all of the information still there, that all of this hubbub has been made around this, when I think Stellar Blade is definitely a game that is worth championing. Again, no microtransactions, big meaty story, very interesting use of different design elements and how it combines, and is even a love letter to some of the greatest character action games that have ever existed, and puts that into a structure. It mimics some of Dark Souls, some of Nier Automata. It introduces RPG mechanics in an interesting way. It makes excellent use of collectibles in a very old school way that I really appreciate, and how it keeps me motivated and exploring, because I can get not just extra HP or extra beta energy, or how I can get all of the new cool outfits, and I'm always excited to see what the next outfit will be. It's a great game that's just a really fun video game with a lot of like PS2 energy that I absolutely love, and I'm going to have my very in-depth review. But instead of talking about this game, instead of talking about the shining example of actual good consumer practices where it's not trying to nickel and dime you at every corner, where it's not following so many of the trends in the industry, and instead it's just giving you a really good game. We have to talk about this censorship issue, which seems so minor to me in comparison to all of the good. But it's only minor if it doesn't lead to anywhere else, and it doesn't lead to those other conversations. And it might. It might. And everybody's having their fun with their speculation and talking about it and why it might be. But I just want you to know that we don't know. I get tired of saying it, but stuff isn't black and white. Make your own mind up about it. If you care so much about the potential implications that it has, refund the game, don't buy it, don't support it, don't support Sony. I'm not a big fan of Sony in general, but I try and remain as objective as possible on this channel, and hey, they picked a winner with this game. That's the truth. It's a great game. But yeah, boycott them, complain about them. If you think that it's important or you understand the reasons why, but it doesn't affect you, you don't care that much about it, you just want to play a good-ass video game, go play the game. That's ultimately what I did. I mean, well, technically I had it bought before any of this went down, but it wouldn't have changed my decision either way, because hey, this is one of my biggest surprises of the year. I think this is definitely a game of the year contender, to be honest. And yeah, my review will be up pretty soon, I guess. Stay informed, because an informed consumer is a smart consumer, and don't let yourself get tricked by headlines of any sort out there. Do a little bit of digging, and if you're not willing to do the digging, subscribe to the channel, because if it's big enough, I will do the digging for you, and I'll be here telling you what's fact and what's fiction. I've been Mugthief. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.